Experience tells me that this is often the section that students have the most difficulty with because there's some things they forget or things get a little complicated. I'm hoping I can sort those out. So it is the last section in the chapter, hooray, where our solving absolute value equations and inequalities. And just remember that absolute value is distance. We often say distance from 0, but I'm going to leave it a little more generic than that. So the most fundamental type of equation I can have is the absolute value of x equals 4. Well, what does that mean? If I am 4 from 0, I can either be up here at positive 4 or I can be down here at negative 4. In absolute value, our world is simplified in that we're on a line. We're in one dimension. If I could be 4 from anywhere, I would make a circle. So I would rewrite this equation as x equals negative 4 or x equals 4. I like to write it so that it agrees with the graph, left and right. So if I'm going to solve a problem like this, x plus 4 equals 2, well, if I'm 2 away from 0, I can either be down here at negative 2 or I can either be up here at positive 2. And notice when I rewrite the equation, I have interpreted the absolute value symbols. They are no longer here. I've sort of undone the absolute value symbols. So they're gone. I've interpreted that into the two relationships. I could be to the left of 0 by 2, or I could be to the right of 0 by 2. And then I just proceed as usual, and I get x could either be negative 6 or x could be negative 2. And I can check that. Negative 6 plus 4 is negative 2. The absolute value of negative 2 is 2. Check. Negative 2 plus 4 is 2. The absolute value of 2 is 2. That checks. Absolute value equations are relatively simple. Just rewrite them as two relationships. Inequalities get a little trickier, and I like to think about these graphically. So for example, let me do 24. And this says the absolute value of x plus 5 is greater than 6. Now if I think about that on a graph, here's my 0, here's 6, and here's negative 6. I want to be 6. I want to be greater than 6. So I have to be from 6 this way, or I have to be from 6 that way. So that's what this looks like. I want to be beyond 6. So what does this mean? This means x plus 5 must be less than negative 6, and x plus 5 must be greater than positive 6. So here are my two relationships now. And another way to think about that is if I changed the sign, negative 6 to negative 6, I had to change the symbol. Change the sign, change the symbol. In this case, I didn't change the sign, 6 and 6, so I don't need to change the symbol. But graphically, this is what's happening. So subtract 5, x is less than negative 11. Subtract 5, x is greater than 1. Let's do 28. And this says that 5 minus x, the absolute value of 5 minus x, is less than or equal to 2. So what does that look like? If here's my 0, here's negative 2, and here's positive 2, I have to be within 2, less than or equal to 2. And so I want to be less than positive 2 or greater than negative 2. That's what's going to get me to stay within 2 of 0. I don't want to be any further than 2 away, so I can't be out here. I have to be in here. So now this becomes 5 minus x has to be greater than or equal to negative 2. Again, I changed the sign, so I changed the symbol. Or 5 minus x has to be less than or equal to 2. No change in sign, so no change in symbol. And then just proceed. And negative x is greater than or equal to -7. Now I'm going to divide by -1. So my symbol's going to change. Sort of the same thing. It's almost like you're dividing by or multiplying by a -1, so you have to change the symbol. I'm dividing by a -1, so I have to change the symbol. Subtract 5. -x is less than or equal to -3. Divide by -1. And then x is greater than or equal to 3. And this makes sense because I'm less than 7 but greater than 3. So I have to be between 7 and 3. That makes sense. If I need to be between here, I need to be between here. Down over here, remember what would have happened? I would have been greater than or equal to 1 or less than or equal to -11. There's no overlap. That's an or. There's overlap. That's an and. I can actually write this as between. You can't write this one as between, and don't try. Greater than is beyond, less than is within. Greater than is beyond, less than is within. Hopefully that does it for those.